stop the process for a time there. I think it's also important to share or to note that with anything, whether it's year to year, annual, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's day to day, goals are determined and modified to have the best outcome, reach the outcome. So the initial goals that were developed did change over time because it was a 2-year process. So as we went through the process and we visited schools, we did our due diligence, we did our research, we revised the goals, shared it with the exploratory team, shared it with the teachers, the departments, shared it with cabinet, and that is the revision that you have in front of you. So I wanted to speak to the goals specifically. There's certainly no question that block or some form of block supports certain things such as the schedule, perhaps with the labs. But what we also found through the process, it was not the schedule or the minutes or the block versus hybrid versus 8 versus 7 that supported student success or student achievement. That it was best teaching practice, professional development for the teachers, support through the process, through the day-to-day teaching, and those are the areas as a team we elected to explore and support and evaluate over this year and next year, not taking off schedule exploration for the future. Because perhaps our current schedule will work, perhaps an 8-period schedule may work, perhaps a block or a version of block may work down the road. But based on the research and the anecdotal data that we learned along the way, as well as quantitative data along the way, the team came with the current recommendation, which is to retain a 7-period schedule, implement the link crew, implement career pathways, implement a remediation and enrichment, incorporate the school improvement plans that the cores are putting in place currently, and certainly into next year, and reevaluate in a year or two our student scores. And if we do not see success, I think as a team, as a school, as a family of educators, our job is to reevaluate what we are doing or what we need to do for the best of our students.
I actually did, way back when the process started, I looked up for myself about block and traditional scheduling. I was concerned about AP courses and how those would be affected by having a block schedule, if that's what one of the options was going to be. And so then I just revisited again, and I found some things from 1998, so I kind of threw those away because they're so old. But I did find from 2015 and 2009, somebody did do a dissertation, Dr. Price, on the block and the traditional. And they found the same things in both studies, several things actually that I looked at that you said, that it wasn't a scheduling that affected the student achievement. And actually in these 2 studies that I pulled back up quickly here, the students in the core subjects, so in Georgia, the one dissertation was from Georgia, Southern Georgia University. They found in these tests that they take, which would be the equivalent of our Keystones or our PSSAs, that in those core subjects, in a block schedule, the achievement was actually lower in what they had studied. And also in this other one, I apologize, I think it's in Florida, they found the same, that in the block scheduling, the achievement was slightly lower, but it wasn't significantly lower, it was just a little bit lower. So I also would like to see students have more choices, especially because we have, like Christine said, we have so many nice courses that we've been bringing to the high school. But as I read all of this and I thought about it, we're going to have to choose, like, how was it prioritized? Was choices of classes prioritized over achievement, or was achievement prioritized over the choices of classes? Because I think that would be something that people should be aware of, that the study doesn't support it that there's not a strong reason, speaking in terms of achievement, to switch to block, and I just thought it would be fair to mention what I had found.
I just want to comment, because it's not, I think that's a false choice to say we're choosing choice over
I'm just,
achievement, because I believe the studies show that, right, if it doesn't have, right, that you can't isolate it, that it doesn't have a direct impact. But, it doesn't, the schedule does address the choices that the kids have and the scheduling, and if the scheduling, the idea was to look at the schedule and make it more efficient. And so I think it's great that we found these through all the process, found Link Crew, which has been growing great this year, and, moving towards career pathways, I think is a definite plus for students. I think the RAMS period, implementing that can have a lot of benefits, but I think there are a lot of schools, when they do it, there are definite issues and problems that hopefully, that as we implement it, that the high school will reach out and talk to those other schools and see where there are issues and try and avoid the same mistakes that schools make with that. But as far as, efficiency of scheduling and better use of time, there are other options, and it's not just, I don't think it's a choice of having to choose, kids having more classes versus their achievement, because if you look at those schools with the SPP scores, all of them, 9 out of 10 of them offer more classes, students can take more classes than they can at Pennridge. So that's not the choice. And it doesn't necessarily, it was that the 8-period day also has the, having an even number has other benefits. Right, all right, other questions?
I'm not saying that it would, like I said, it wasn't a dramatic change. I'm just saying if achievement was one of the goals, and I don't know if that was something that people were considering, that was information I wanted to offer, that it wasn't something that was going to enhance it by having the block schedule. So it seems like a lot of thought was put into, the process. And, if you want to toss this out and, go for block, that's fine. I was just giving this additional information.
Thank you. Let Mrs. Walters, she hasn't had a chance yet.
I just want to say thank you. I respect all the work that you have done, being a former educator myself. But I also wanted to say that I heard it mentioned twice tonight that the 90-minute period would be difficult for some students that have difficulty sitting for that length of time. And I didn't know if it was discussed at all, if there were ways to differentiate or give professional development for some of the teachers, because I know change is hard when you have been teaching for a significant amount of time, to change lessons from 45, 50 minutes and make them 90 minutes. How's this going to look? And that takes a great deal of work. But I didn't know if that was discussed at all, of ways to incorporate some movement in the classrooms and how you could differentiate lessons to not be sitting for, we wouldn't want the expectation for students to be sitting for 90 minutes straight.
There certainly was discussion throughout this whole process. We also considered, as we looked at each schedule, the professional development that would need to go along with it. So whether it was block or a hybrid, anything significantly different than what the teachers are currently teaching right now would have required professional development. And that was one of the things that we said along the way, that if in the event that we were going to go to a block, where the periods would be doubled, for example, that there would be at least a year of professional development to support the teachers and quite frankly, everyone in the building, from teaching assistants to administrators to students as well. So there absolutely was conversation about that. I'd also just like to address one of the, and every year when I present, Mr. Lebowski and I present to the Personnel Committee our course requests as we move into the schedule for the following year. One of the things that I see, and as I talk to my colleagues, certainly at our Bucks County Consortium meetings, the number of electives that we have, the diversity of the electives that we offer in this district, certainly here at the high school, is sometimes double than what some of my colleagues have. And I'm proud to say that some of the courses that we are implementing here at the high school over the course of the last 5 years and certainly moving forward. They've always been supported by the school board, the electives, and they are overwhelmingly successful and popular with our students. So I have to say, with the diversity of the courses that we offer, our students do have the opportunity to take and explore and explore their interests. With that said, we do, as we go through the scheduling process, and Mr. Levosky can tell you, as can any of the administrators, we make every effort to make sure students get the courses that they want. And sometimes it's via maybe a cyber course, Bucks County Community College, maybe it's a independent course, but the courses that we have here at the high school, I believe that our students do have opportunities to take a wide range of courses. They may not be able to take 8, an even number as we talked about, but certainly through their high school career, they have that opportunity. Furthermore, the career pathways that we will look to implement will also give students and parents sort of a snapshot at different careers, and embedded within those careers, the courses that we offer here at the high school and the courses that they can take throughout their throughout their high school career. So just 2 things I wanted to mention.
I think we know I think the point that Mrs. Yardley was making is, yeah, we do have all of these electives, but if they don't have the time to take the electives based on the classes that they're required to take, then, it doesn't matter how many electives you have. But when we were looking at this, and I guess what's kind of, what's frustrating kind of on my end is I feel like we were involved in the process at the beginning, and then everything disappeared from us, and then it's kind of like, well, here we are, and we're in a completely different spot than where you left us, and so it's difficult to catch up. You know what I mean? And so when I'm looking at what was discussed in my meeting, and now it's starting to, it was so long ago, I'm trying to get all of this back. But we looked at the fact that the 7-period schedule was not solving the scheduling concerns that we were discussing. And then the 8-period schedule and the block were solving a majority of them, but the biggest concern with the block was how it affected the AP courses. And also whether or not kids can sit for that long. But the AP courses, and then you'd have to have something after that because you would have to, there's different ways to do it and hybrid ways to try to make that work, but that was the biggest thing because they'd be taking the test in May. But the 8-period schedule solved everything from, you could put in the co-planning and the professional development because it was easier because of how that affected the sciences. And then when you had that 45-minute lunch, one of the benefits to that was they were saying that when you had that 45-minute lunch, you could use that, you could kind of piggyback and use that they could use that for enrichment, or they could take an extra class and have a working lunch. And so that was one of the benefits that they were talking about with the 8-period schedule. And then you didn't have the issue with the sciences because it was an even number. So, and everyone seemed to like that when I was in the process. And so I don't know how, that was kind of the consensus then, that was what everybody wanted to do, at least in with the people that I had talked to in the group that I was in. And now the recommendation is the 7-period one, which seemed, I guess I feel like we were already there, and now we're going, the whole point was to try to fix it, and how are we fixing it if we're kind of staying where we were, when this seemed to be fixing the main concerns that we had? Because if you took that lab over the lunch, or some of these kids that were trying to go above and beyond and fit in these extra things and maybe wanted to take this extra class and couldn't. Some of them have those tighter schedules that they can't take those electives.
Okay, so through the process, from the beginning, as we started to notice some of the nuts and bolts issues with the sciences, Dr. Scheid, Lisa Wagner, who's the coordinator department leader for health and PE, and Ms. Cotner-Davis worked through some of the science and the health and PE issues, resolving many of them. I think it's to say many of those conflicts have been worked out. Are there still some? Yes, there are. Are there conflicts in every schedule? Based on the conversations that I've had with my colleagues who teach or are administrators in both, yes, there are. The consensus was, while the 8-period may have solved some of those issues, there were also some issues that came up with the 8-period as well. So again, as a committee, needing to have a recommendation sort of to bring this process to an end, it was considering these other pieces and supported by research that supports student achievement and is proven to help students succeed.
But you said that it doesn't affect student achievement. So I guess I'm confused because we're saying we changed the goals and now it's about student achievement, but we're saying that the schedule has zero impact on student achievement. So you're losing me because the things that we talked about fixing, we're not fixing.
I didn't say, I never said I never said schedule doesn't have zero impact. What I'm suggesting is there are other things that do support student achievement and success, such as from the research of Schmoker and Kowalty. And those are the items that we as a team wanted to implement and facilitate until we get to the point where we're overhauling our entire schedule.
What are we doing about teachers being able to have collaborative time? How's that working? 'Cause
well, right now, our teachers, it's not going to change as what it is right now. So they have department time, they work within the department leaders in monthly meetings, they have their IPC rooms where they come together throughout the day, but there is not a planned time for teachers to co-plan, if that's what you're suggesting. For some there are, but not for everybody.
I'm sorry, was there, I thought I saw somewhere where you had listed each school and whether they were allowed to work through lunch if they had one of these high number of periods a day. That wasn't in here somewhere, is that what you presented?
I don't think it's in this one. I don't have access to my PowerPoint anymore, so I can't even go
okay.
back.
All right, it's not here. And then, with the middle school schedule, the same thing essentially happened. We studied it for, was it 1 year? And then ended up coming back around to what was going on in the middle school in the first place anyway. I think I saw it somewhere. I know that I saw certain schools, and if you could just find that information, which ones allow them to skip lunch in order to fit in.
Students. You mean students?
The students, I'm sorry, yeah.
Megan, I just wanted to finish answering part of your question, that I think one of the key factors when the committee was looking this fall at the 7-period versus 8-period day was if we could make that lunch period, that extended 45-minute block meaningful as far as incorporating Ram's time into that, I think that might have swayed the committee more in that direction. But the committee really felt that 15 minutes, by the time students got somewhere, did anything meaningful and got where they needed to be again, that there wasn't going to be enough time there to do anything and accomplish anything great during that time. So that they would be better served during a longer period of time, during an activity period that could be rotated in. That was a key factor, actually. So initially, there was hope that we could come up with a plan to make that lunch block meaningful, and the committee couldn't come up with something that was going to work during that time. That was one piece. And then the other piece that was a concern that the committee kept coming back to was, initially, we had hoped that we would look at a schedule that maybe would incorporate longer periods of time, so we wouldn't lose instructional minutes, and that we were losing instructional minutes. So that trade-off, coupled with the fact that the lunch wasn't going to work for remediation, based on our discussions, I think that's when the committee said, now we have a trade-off of that longer lunch block and probably additional supervision of students in the CAF during that lunch block. Is that worth the trade-off of what we're currently doing in a 7-period day if we've already fixed a good portion of those course conflicts? So that was the discussion.
Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, so Dr. Scheid, what's the next step?
I don't know that we need a motion.
Can you turn your microphones on, please?
The next step, I'm sorry.
the next step in terms of high school scheduling?
Yes.
Dr. Price?
Well, at this point, the recommendations that were made tonight are not, and we're not coming to you asking for additional staffing or any kind of budgetary implications with this, outside of some of the costs that are already presented at the activities, for instance, such as the link crew trainings and things like that. So right now, the group's recommendation was to, next school year, run this current schedule with the changes that have been recommended. And one of the things that wasn't pointed out here, because I know they were talked about at a prior curriculum committee meeting, but it was plans for school improvement and some of the things that are being done within the schedule as well. So that whole big picture together, and then looking at how things are going with academic performance at the high school, and then revisiting again at the end of next school year, and as Ms. DeBona said, continually evaluating the schedule. We'd be doing our due diligence if we didn't do that. So to look again and say, okay, now these are the things we set out to do. Are they working within our current 7-period schedule, or do we have to come back again and have a discussion?
So will someone be presenting what the Rams schedule is going to look like in the spring with the additional period?
Yeah, we absolutely can. As the committee is progressing, we can provide an update as far as what that will look like, yes.
And then just to summarize, then you're saying that you are, open, this is going to be something that will be evaluated as you go along. Am I clear on that you?
Yes, I think, as you heard us talking about, trying to isolate that variable of schedule, I think this will help with that as well, because if things aren't working that we're setting out to do in this schedule, then you might have to attempt something or at least consider how that would look in another schedule. But if things are heading in the right direction and improving, and I mean, let's not talk about something drastic here. We're not a failing institution. We're not a school that is doing terribly academically. If we were at the beginning of this process, I think it would have looked much differently, and we would have went into this saying, we will be changing our master schedule. But we didn't do that because the high school is doing well, but we're always looking to improve, and Ms. DeBona and her team are always looking to improve. So that's why I think you need to try things, see how they're working, and then if they're not, you're constantly coming back to the drawing board and trying to take that extra step forward. But until you put some pieces in place, if you start 10 new things, you don't know which of those 10 is actually causing the change. So I think this will help with that piece as well. But yes, we will provide updates.
So we had, one of the pieces is the link crew, and we had the mid-year update, but when will we get, one of the things is fewer discipline referrals and fewer students with, failing classes and those things that are some of the benefits that go along with the link crew. So when will we get the data for that for the first year?
So we'll come back to the board in the fall with the 2017-18 link crew data.
Okay.
And that's easy, that's easy to run those things.
Okay, all right, that's good. So we'll look for the Rams period update this spring and then link crew data in the fall. Okay.
This is Yarly. Can I just say a thank you to Dr. Price, Ms. DeBona, and everyone who was involved, board members, parents, staff. Obviously, this is a topic people are passionate about. The fact that they're here tonight at this hour, even after a late night last night, some people were watching TV or at a game. But anyway, I think what I learned through this process and overseeing what they were doing is the fact that there's no one right answer. And every school has its own culture. And we opted to have this be a collaborative process where every voice mattered and counted. And you're never going to please everybody when you do that, but you do come to consensus. And I'm confident that they have a solid recommendation here, and I would absolutely say they must continue to monitor that, because if it doesn't work, then you have to change. It's that simple. But I want to thank everybody.
I will add my thanks to everyone, and thank you to everybody for coming out and staying late. And the weather cooperated, I guess, with our 2-hour delay this morning, so that helped everyone with the late night, and I guess that's why everyone's still awake now and here at the meeting, right? We got to start 2 hours later. All right, so that is the end of our agenda, so we come back to public comment.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. In November, we did a data review and only managed to get through the high school with the promise that we would explore why only about 50% of our middle school kids in some of the middle schools are proficient at grade level in math. There were no curriculum committee meetings scheduled for December. The one in January, I believe, was canceled because of bad weather. So when will the data review occur that was promised back in November?
Yes, it has been a struggle coming back. We are working on that presentation. I will be doing that. So hopefully it'll be in March. We do have a number of things coming in March, including the elementary scheduling recommendations. But yes, I'm fully prepared to come and give you an update on the progress that we're making in terms of improvement plans.
And what about the board? Do you all agree that you want that to happen in March?
Yeah, well, I had talked to Dr. Scheid about that, talking about what we're doing to improve our scores. So, yeah, I expect that'll be.
Okay, but what about the public presentation?
No, that'll be part of the curriculum meeting.
Okay. And I was kind of disappointed to a certain extent. There was a remark just made, and I'll agree, we're not a terrible education institution, but we have dropped nearly 20 points in the last 4 years. So I think, when you look at those 10 schools that you had up there, they're outscoring us on the school performance profile significantly. And, I heard a lot about this, that, and the other committee meeting, and these goals and those goals. I don't think we're making our goals, which is to, I would think, at least keep pace with our surrounding school districts in terms of our academic performance, scoring in the 80s and the 90s. We're in the 70s. We're even in the low 70s. I'm just going to remind you of that because I heard a whole lot of talk tonight, but when I look at the results, if I were a parent here, I'd be scared to death for my child's future. And, to keep putting off the academic achievement in the middle school in preparation of my child going into the high school, again, I would be very nervous about that because, I don't know, it just didn't seem to be a priority. We're shuffling off something to March that should have happened in November. That's the way I think about it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tyler Murphy. I teach here at the high school, teach some of your kids. So I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to listen tonight. I want to thank Ms. DeBona for doing a great job in the presentation. Dr. Price, thank you very much. This has been a labor of love for these people in this room. And if you look back here, you can see there's about 40 of us that were here tonight because we care about this issue and we also feel that you all do. Megan, you had great questions tonight, I want to tell you. Mrs. West and I constantly were talking about how great they were. Please keep that up. Please keep asking those questions. We want to work together and we want to figure things out on how to make this the best place possible because we're committed to this. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that we are here and we are working towards this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here tonight. Okay, after the Super Bowl. So, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Kelly Smola.
There's a button on there, it has like, yeah, you got it.
You're good, you got it. Oh, turn it off. There we go. Kelly Smola, Perksy Borough. I came to hear the proposal for the K-25 library, and I just wanted to give a more personal background to my support of that program. So when I found out that there was not a full-time librarian in my children's school, I was a little shocked because growing up, there was a full-time librarian in my school. So I was kind of surprised that there wasn't. And it occurred to me that, so my son is a voracious reader. I mean, he finishes a book and he wants the next book to start right away. And so he comes to school, finishes a book, library's closed, he can't get that next book. Luckily, we are in a position that I am able to provide that through other opportunities, but not all students have those other opportunities. Also, for those kids that maybe they finally found that one book that hit them, that they're like, oh my gosh, I love this book, I want the next one. And they have to wait 2 days to come get, or a day to come get the next one, or maybe because of scheduling, it hits over a weekend, maybe they lose some of that enthusiasm. Also, we had an experience when my son was just starting in the elementary school, where there was a dead animal on our walkway, and he was fascinated by this animal. And he asked me what it was, and I went, it's a mole or a vole or some underground crawly thing. He went into school, he went to the librarian, and he asked for information about moles and voles, and she was able to give him a book to look that up. He read that book all the way through. I think the next day or two later, she provided him with another book from another elementary school, because our elementary school had only had one book to solve his question. He read through that entire book. And I would say that that experience had a huge impact not only on him, but also my daughter. That now when they have questions about things, they go into the library to find a book about it. My daughter got extremely interested in horses, and that's all she wanted to read about, and was constantly going into the library to look up information about horses. And so I think it's very important for there to be a dedicated librarian in the school, so that children have these opportunities to go in and find this information and really have a love of reading. I have a love of reading. I'm trying to pass it on to my children, and I am greatly appreciative to the librarians that have been in his school and their school that have helped support that process. Because as you all know who have children, children only take things from mom and dad so far, but if they're then reinforced from other sources, it is greatly helpful, because it's hard to have that impact on your own as a parent. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Any other public comment? All right, Dr. Scheid, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to respond to Mrs. Furlong's comments in terms of our SPP scores, and just as a reminder, our elementary schools, we're second in the county. They're very strong, and we continue to improve in that area. Middle schools have not performed to where we would like them to, as all other Bucks County middle schools. In terms of the high school, yes, the 3 Keystone exams, we can improve, and we're working on improvement plans. We are, and I'll be presenting those. But the high school and all the schools are so much more than just the exams. And anyone who knows me and has had discussions with me know that I actually think the standards are a very good thing. We should be meeting the standards and then going above them. I just could not let that comment go without some response to say, I am absolutely so proud to be working in Pennridge. And the wonderful things that happen here, we're not limited to test groups. We care about that. We're working on that. The supervisors are working tirelessly with plans with the administrators and the teachers and analyzing data, because everybody wants to be the best they can be and provide the best they can for the students in this district. We are doing that, and I look forward to that presentation at the next month's curriculum meeting. Thank you.
All right, I just want to add my thank you, or just reiterate my thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, for all the work that was put into the program proposals and the scheduling recommendation. And I just want to remind everybody that we all do have the same goal of a great education for our students, and that we all are here. Every single person in this room has that same goal. We might have different ideas about how we get there, but I believe, we all have that same goal, and we are all working towards that. So thank you to everyone for coming out and for staying this whole time. We are adjourned.